let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. Chris, what is our fifth and final main topic today?
It's the topic the comment section has been waiting for. Daniel Rojo writes in, I'm sure by now that you heard the controversy around Joker. From people complaining that it has a white male character killing people, and people saying this film will cause violence and mass shootings. Phoenix said, quote, I don't think it's the responsibility of a filmmaker to teach the audience morality or the difference between right or wrong. So, my question, why are people making a huge deal of this when we had 3 John Wick movies and other movies that had a lot of gun violence? Where do you guys stand on this?
Look, one thing I want to say off the top before we get into this, and I think this is important. I think this is important to keep in mind, and this should kind of cover everything that we talk about from here on out, okay? The first statement is this. It is completely understandable that people be sensitive to certain things. I'll give you an example. You guys know, just a couple years ago, it's one of the things that prompted me to go out on my own. My best friend growing up passed away of cancer a couple years ago. And it had a profound impact on me, as it would with anybody, for sure. And in the coming months, and you know what? I'll still say it to this day. When I'm watching a TV show or a movie and the issue of cancer comes up, I'm sensitive to it. It's a little disturbing to me. It's a little bothersome to me. It's something that affects, everybody to some degree, for sure. And I'm sensitive to it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with me being sensitive to it. If somebody loses a loved one in a car accident, then having a movie that is predicated on some massive car pileup and thing, you can forgive, and it be completely understandable that there may be some people in the audience that are going to be sensitive to that. Of course, because a lot of people have been touched in their lives by the tragedy of car accidents and people getting hit and losing their lives or having their lives forever changed and altered. I'm sure there are people around the world who have lost people in plane accidents. And so then you go and watch The Boys, where there's not one but 2 significant scenes with planes going down. You got to be able to understand that there are going to people, and it's completely respectable, are going to feel sensitive to that and feel like that's either painful for me to watch, or I don't want to watch that, or I don't want to see that. And that's understandable. There are people in this world who have been affected by violence, and particularly gun violence. And so that there would be people in our world that would be sensitive to that whenever it's portrayed on a television screen or a movie screen, whatever, being sensitive, that's completely understandable. That is completely understandable. And I think it's important that I say that first, because that statement has to cover everything else that we talk about here. Somebody being sensitive to stuff like that is completely normal and completely understandable, and I absolutely endorse it, and I'm completely support them on that. However, in a world, and I'm really, really glad the person who wrote in brought up the issue of John Wick. In a world that we have John Wick movies, where I haven't seen Joker yet, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to bet you the body count of each John Wick movie is higher than the body count we're going to get in Joker. And if you want to talk about glorifying violence, you got the hero running around, just people he's never met. Bullet to the head, bullet to the head, bullet to the head. Woo, I'm John Wick. Yay, John Wick. Bullet to the head, bullet to the head. If you want to talk about anything glorifying violence and gun violence, hell, we even coined a phrase for it. Called it gun fu. We even coined a phrase for it. I love it, but if you're going to have a problem with gun violence, something glorifying violence or anything like that, we have plenty of movies out there. We have Star Wars, where Darth Vader and his Emperor are going around committing genocide across the galaxy. We have Jaws, where a fish is eating people. We have all these things. Look.
Fish has got to eat.
Fish has got to eat, Rob. Fish has got to eat. So look, now we come to a movie like Joker. All right? We come to a movie like Joker. A movie that the vast, vast majority of us have still not seen. The vast majority. I still haven't seen it. You probably still haven't seen it. There's a very small group of people out there who've seen it. But there's not a small group of people that are decrying the movie, saying that it glorifies violence, look, a movie having violence in it does not glorify violence. I would even say that about John Wick. John Wick, look, it's a story. It's a fairy tale, you know? When we read, Snow White, are we saying we're glorifying people poisoning each other? Are we worried that, some girl out there now who feels like she's second best to another girl in her school, she's going to start poisoning other girls? She's going to.
I did.
Which Chris clearly did. Make no mistake about it. How do you think she's got the job? She figured out. Chris came into
the comments are going to be like, Ashley,
She came into the auditions. When I stepped out, she looked through the other resumes that came in, made mental note, and she was the last one left.
Yep.
But, I mean, this notion that art and movies cause. I remember recently there was a big thing about this as well, that some brain dead twits out there are trying to say that video games cause violence. It's like, really? Well, let's take a look at video game. Oh, look how high the percentage of the kids in Australia who play video games. Any gun violence there? Nah. Ooh, look at the extreme higher than the United States per capita. More kids in Canada play violent video games per capita than they do in the United States. Wow, that must be a big violence problem. There's not. The point here is that, number one, these types of movies, it has been proven, do not cause violence, do not cause this, that, and the other thing. But the other thing that I want to go to is what Joaquin Phoenix himself brought up in his statement. It is not up to filmmakers and television producers or Broadway play things to dictate to an audience what their morality should be. That's not their job. Their job is to tell stories. Any more than, making Friday the 13th, that's pretty irresponsible. Because that, like, if there's some guy who feels socially awkward, he's just going to think it's cool now to pick up a machete and go out there and start hacking people to death. No, we don't.
That's cool, though.
I mean, which would be cool if you're trying to get a job. So, so Joaquin Phoenix is completely right. Number one, it is not the filmmaker's job to teach moral lessons. If that were the case, you could never have a character having an affair. You could never show somebody cheating on their taxes. You could never show somebody running a red light. You could never show a heroic cop trying to chase down drug dealers. You could never do this, and you could never do that, and you could never do the other thing. Storytellers are there to tell stories that we as audience members then need to determine for ourselves, what do we take from those stories? And the answer to the question is not, don't let them tell stories. That's not the answer. It's not the answer. And the fact that everybody seems to be drawing their attention to Joker on this, I find troubling. When there are movies we just had Halloween, where Michael is walking around butchering and killing people, and all, but nobody said, well, this is gonna glorify violence. This is gonna make people want to go out and start killing each other. Where we have John Wick, where we have the hero murdering, for all we know, some college kid who just got in with the wrong crowd and is trying to pay off his college tuition by being a security guy for this, and he's going to take a bullet to the head from John Wick. We don't talk about it with that. Why does it become an issue with Joker? Is it because Joker's getting attention, so let's use Joker as our scapegoat? I find the whole situation very troubling. I find it very troubling. And it reinforces to me that, look, we as a human species, we're idiots. I mean, we are. You can be an idiot. I can be an idiot. We all can be massive idiots at times. And this is one of those times where I think we've just lost our collective damn minds. It's a movie. It's a movie. It's a piece of fiction meant to tell a cautionary tale that is up to you and me as audience members to take away from that cautionary tale whatever we would want. And to get back to the original point, Rob, of, do I feel like anybody out there who's been affected by violence and affected by specifically, say, gun violence in our culture, that they shouldn't be sensitive to something like this? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. Of course you're going to be sensitive to it. Just like I'm still sensitive to when cancer comes up and things, when somebody else would be sensitive if they lost loved ones in car accidents, or somebody would be sensitive to the boys if they lost somebody in an airplane incident. Of course I can understand that, and I don't blame them one bit. But this notion of piggybacking on Joker for a political agenda to try to make some point about art, to me, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's idiotic. It's absolutely idiotic. It's an idiotic thing being proposed by people who haven't seen the movie, being defended by another idiot who hasn't seen the movie yet either. So don't think the irony of that isn't lost on me. Okay, so anyway, that's my thought on this. Rob, it is a touchy issue. I get it. But as you look at something like this, and by the way, Warner Brothers was forced to put out a statement saying, we at Warner Brothers do not endorse gun violence. Of course they don't. Nobody's saying they endorse gun violence. You know, the producers that made Rambo didn't endorse gun violence. The people who produced Commando didn't endorse. The people who made John Wick don't secretly want everybody to go out and just start shooting everybody who looks at them wrong or, you know, accidentally kicks their puppy. It's not the case. Rob, you look at a situation like this. I've gone on too long. You've looked at a situation like this. How do you respond?
Well, you know, I think of certain examples in my own life, you know, my own film-going life. One of my favorite movies is Paul Verhoeven's Basic Instinct. And in that movie, Sharon Stone, at the beginning of that film, her character, Catherine Trammell, kills record impresario, rock and roller Johnny Boz with an ice pick to the face while they're having sex.
Which is effective.
And I think to myself, if I was ever afforded the opportunity to actually have sex with Catherine Trammell, with Sharon Stone in real life, would I say no because I thought she might stick an ice pick in my face? The answer to that question is no. If I ever had an opportunity to spend the evening with Sharon Stone, I would take it. I wouldn't think twice. I don't think real life really has anything to do with movies. The Joker is a character who is a homicidal maniac. And we are watching the forging of his personality and how he perhaps became a homicidal maniac. He's been a homicidal maniac throughout his entire comic book career. And the idea that a movie about the forging of a homicidal maniac somehow glorifies violence is utterly ridiculous. The whole point of the film is that let's not be a society, and again, John, I haven't seen the movie, so I'm just assuming, let's not be a society that allows people like the Joker to be created. We all could be kinder, I would imagine, if a character like, was it Arthur Fleck?
Yeah.
If somebody extended perhaps an olive branch or showed him a little bit more kindness, you know, if he's coming back from his job where he's dressed as a clown, guy's making a buck, perhaps if somebody doesn't make fun of him on a train and beats him up or something, maybe he wouldn't have turned into a homicidal maniac. My favorite movie, well, my second favorite movie of all time is A Clockwork Orange, which ran into the same kinds of problems. And indeed, there were certain copycat crimes committed in Britain which caused Stanley Kubrick to have the film pulled from release for decades. And look, people are idiots, like you pointed out. The human species does not have a good track record treating each other nicely over the last couple thousand years. And it's not because of movies. And I think that art need not be limited or constrained by certain people that are a little overly sensitive about the horrors that we visit upon one another on a daily basis. It's not the movie that's doing it. You know, it's the person that's going to go out and perpetrate violence. And I don't think any movies should be considered responsible for that. There's no causality at all.
The job of art, we've heard said, Rob, is sometimes to dream of what we can be, where we can go, but it's also meant to be something that expresses our fears, become cautionary tales that are meant to hold up a mirror and look at things in our world in an allegorical sort of way.
That's right.
This is the job of art. This is the job of film. Sometimes it's meant to make us laugh. Sometimes it's meant to make us cry. Sometimes it's make us to feel apprehension and fear, but that's the job of art. And we can't start suddenly when we can see plainly, when all the facts and statistics prove the point that these aren't causalities. Mm-hmm. It's something we got to understand. Chris, as an artist yourself, as an actress and something like that, you see something like this. I mean, and you've done voices and animations with lots of violence and things like that. How do you approach this?
These things don't incite violence, you guys. I mean, and my video games that I've worked on or played have not made me pick up a gun. And I understand there is a concern of glorifying violence or glorifying a violent character. And I think a lot of the early reviews of this film have people worried that it could be glorifying someone who essentially is a domestic terrorist. And And I think the thing that people are really, really holding on to and are triggered by is some of those reviews we talked about on this show, where one person, it might have been the Times review, I can't remember which one, said that this Joker was the patron saint of incels. And now that has people really, really worried about what's going to happen around this movie. Are people going to be inspired by this character? Are people going to look at him as a psychological study for understanding why someone would be like this? I'm thinking it's going to be the latter, and that was why I was interested in this film in the first place, to see it. I don't think that movies are responsible for the actions of individuals. I don't think video games are responsible for the actions of individuals. I don't think you can make a blanket statement about why people are violent aside from the fact that some people just are. And in our country, we obviously have a lot of issues with this, and it's not a movie issue. I don't think we should be jumping the gun here. Sorry, bad use of it, but about what this movie is going to be without any of us having seen it. And people's outrage right now, you gotta know about something until you can really, really make an opinion on it. You can't say that something tastes disgusting if you've never eaten it, you know?
Yeah. And again, I just want to just throw this for a third time. I have to throw this down. This is, again, in no way, I think, reflects any of our opinions about somebody who feels sensitive to these issues.
Absolutely.
Of course. And that's another thing that art does. Art will sometimes make us feel uncomfortable and put us in those places. And sometimes that's catharsis for us. And sometimes in ways, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just troubling. And I get that. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I support that. But there's a line that gets crossed when we start to saying, you know what, from now on, we're going to go back to the comic book code days. From now on, movie makers can only make things with funny giggles and talking deers, and just the biggest problem of the day is Downton Abbey with who's going to fix the hot water heater.
But that's equally bad. I mean, no, but I mean, not Downton Abbey, but I mean, it's equally bad that we're only getting that kind of entertainment because that denies the reality of human existence.
Exactly.
And denies what art is on its DNA supposed to do and
Absolutely.
supposed to be. So, guys, listen, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is a simple issue. It's not. I have my opinions about it, but that doesn't mean I think it's a simple issue and that I don't think there aren't other points of view as well. I'm curious to know what you guys think about all of that. As a matter of fact, that's why we made that the topic of today's question of the day. The question of the day that I posed to you guys, which you can go over and see and vote on over on my Twitter, just simply at John Campea there. I put up the following and asked this. Do you agree with the statement? Studios and filmmakers shouldn't make movies like Joker because they will cause and inspire real-life violence in the real world. We discussed this some more on today's show. I put this up just before the show started. Right now, over 2,100 of you guys have voted. It's pretty lopsided right now. Right now, 96% of you are saying that you disagree with that statement. 4% of you are saying that you agree with the statement. I want to know what you guys think about this overall. Jump down to the comments section. And remember, we're all human beings together here, guys. But jump down to the comments section below and leave your thoughts. All right.